Hello, my name is Clay McLeod, and the purpose of this presentation is to share a little bit about my approach to teaching, or my teaching philosophy. So I teach at Spring Valley Middle School, and we are the Stingers. I'm not going to share this video with you, but I am going to put the link to this video in the description of the video so that you can check out this video on your own if you would like. It's something that informs, some of the ideas in this video inform my approach to teaching. On top of being a teacher, I'm a dad. I have a 17-year-old daughter named Zadie. She's in grade 12, and a 12-year-old son named Kai, who's in grade 7. As you can probably tell, this picture is from quite a few years ago, but it's one of my favorites. And I have a wife named Ms. Walls, and she is a grade 2 teacher. This is a picture of us as a family a few years ago as well, but a little bit more recent than that last picture of me and the kids. This is a picture of me with my daughter a few years ago, and this is a picture of me with my son a few years ago. So before becoming a teacher, I worked as a lawyer many years ago, about 20 years ago, and since becoming a teacher, I have taught grades 3 to 8. I have my master's degree, and I have written several articles and teaching resources, and I regularly present professional development workshops to other teachers. So teachers look at students in different ways, and some teachers or some approaches to teaching think of students as a blank slate or like an empty vessel to fill with information. And others think that students construct their own knowledge and understanding of the world. In today's technologically changing world, it is more important than ever to teach students to think for themselves. So I fall into the category of teachers who believe that students construct their own knowledge and understanding. Once again, this is a video that I'm not going to share the whole thing with you, but I will put the link in the video description so that you can check this out on your own if you would like, because the ideas in this video are also very relevant to the approach that I take to teaching. If what is taught in school isn't relevant to students, they won't care about it and they won't learn as much. So I try to make things relevant and engaging in order to make it so that my students care about what we do in school. This helps them to learn. Some of the things that we will likely do this year to keep things engaging include an election simulation, since there is going to be a provincial election soon. We'll do slide deck presentations and/or create videos to share some of the things that students have learned. We will probably do some Duolingo language learning. We'll learn about media literacy. We'll learn to think critically and how to cooperate and learn more with our classmates, global education, and if things come up that students are interested in, we will explore some of those issues as well. In order to help students construct their own understanding of what we will study, I try to pose questions instead of just telling them what I want them to remember so that they can regurgitate it on a test or quiz later on. Educator Paulo Freire called the telling and regurgitating approach the banking model of education. I prefer not to think that I have a class of piggy banks into which I will deposit information. Hopefully, my posing of questions will help my students to become interested in their own learning, asking questions themselves, and discovering answers for themselves. Hopefully, there will be light bulbs turning on over and in heads in class this year. As we journey together through a maze of challenges, learning, and celebrations. So I want to talk a little bit about assessment. Sometimes report cards and assessment are thought of as scary things, but I would prefer to construct and do assessment and reporting or communicating about student learning in a different way that isn't threatening, but that is actually helpful to students and helps them to learn. So this poster is on my website if you wanted to take a closer look at it. But it sets out some of the ideas behind my approach to assessment, and it describes the elements of the proficiency scale that I'll be using to assess student work this year. This is a little bit more of a bare bones description of the proficiency scale. So it goes from emerging at one end all the way to proficient. And then I'm just going to move this up so you can see at the very end extending. I'll also be giving students feedback on written work that's handed in hard copy using these stamps that represent the different levels on the proficiency scale. So the reason I use the proficiency scale is to try and help students develop a growth mindset. And the idea of growth mindset is that instead of thinking that your learning or your abilities or your understanding and knowledge are static, you're realizing that everyone, and especially you, have the ability to get better at things, to learn more, and to stretch yourself in order to grow, or in order to develop your learning along the lines of making progress and getting better. So instead of saying things like, I'm not good at this, students will be encouraged, I'll encourage students to think, what am I missing? Instead of encouraging students to think, I'm awesome at this, I will encourage them to think I'm on the right track. So students will be encouraged to take risks, to see themselves as learners as opposed to already experts, or as able to learn instead of someone who's not able to learn, and those kinds of ideas. So the idea will always be that even if students aren't good at something or aren't able to do something at the beginning, that through practice and perseverance, they will be able to develop those skills that they don't yet have. And that goes along with this graphic that I included on my newsletter that I sent home at the beginning of the year. And the idea is that there's this perfect sort of Goldilocks area called the discomfort zone on this diagram, where students are actually challenged, and it's a little bit unnerving or scary, even a little bit stressful in a good stress kind of way, but it's also interesting, and students are able to actually expand their abilities and to learn things that they're not yet able, or that they don't yet know, or they're not yet able to do. As opposed to the comfort zone where they're able to do everything and they're not really growing, or the alarm zone where they're stressed and terrified, so they're not able to actually get any learning done. So if the challenge is too great, then that would put it in the alarm zone. And if there's no challenge, that would put it in the comfort zone. And in neither of those places are students really growing, but in the discomfort zone where it's challenging, that's where students make the most progress. And so it's kind of like this idea here that you need to be out of your comfort zone in order to be actually growing and learning and developing as a human being. And like Kid President says, if at first you don't succeed, you're normal. So this is another representation of growth mindset versus fixed mindset, which is the opposite of growth mindset. And it's using the ideas in Star Wars. And one of the things to point out here is that people with a growth mindset embrace challenges, whereas people with a fixed mindset, they avoid challenges because they think that those challenges or doing something that they're not yet good at will make them look stupid. And they really want to worry about what they look like. So they might give up easily when things are difficult because they don't want to be seen having to work hard at something, because that might mean that they're not smart. But on the other hand, people with a growth mindset know that everyone, when they first learn something, it's hard and difficult, so they keep going in those cases. So I've got this poster on my door at school, and it's got things that students can learn to say in order to help them develop this kind of attitude towards learning, or this growth mindset. So throughout the year, I'm going to be sort of mixing things up. Sometimes it'll be obviously English or obviously math that we're working on, but other times it'll be more sort of fluid, and students will be like, is this English or is this social studies? Because I find that a lot of the things that we'll be learning about are connected, and making connections is a really important way to grow and to learn to understand things. So I like this little image because it kind of represents the ambiguity of whether we're learning a specific thing, or whether we're learning things that are all together, and we're looking into the connections between subjects and topics that we're learning about. Some things that I will do at school to support your child's learning this year: I will see your child as an individual with his or her own interests, strengths, and challenges. I will encourage your child to learn and grow intellectually, emotionally, socially, and physically. I will break tasks up into parts and teach the skills needed to do each part of the task. I will give your child feedback about their progress in various different ways. I will try to be generous with my praise and constructive with my criticism. As your child learns and grows, I will expect them to do more themselves. This may not sound like support at first, but it helps them to learn and grow the most in the long run. And I will challenge your child to do their very best. Some things you can do at home to support your child's learning this year: you can ask your son or daughter about their day at school. You can encourage your child to read. They are not too old to listen to you read either. Make sure that they get plenty of sleep every night. Check your child's planner on a daily or at least regular basis. Encourage them to do their best work on assignments, but remember that everyone has their own strengths and challenges. Remember that their schoolwork is theirs, so let them take responsibility for it. You are their cheerleader and coach. If an assignment is causing conflict at home, though, let it go. Deadlines can always be extended. So as far as homework goes, I don't technically assign homework, but I do always think that it's a good idea for students to review or think about the things that they're learning in school, to share with family and friends some of their thinking from school and that kind of thing. So I would like you, instead of looking at homework as particular assignments that come home, to look at homework as thinking about and talking about things that your child may have learned at school, and also doing things like regularly reading at home, and perhaps even practicing math in order to try and build their skills in terms of knowing the times tables and those kinds of things, as opposed to working on specific homework assignments that get sent home, because I won't be sending home specific homework assignments. Some things to remember this year: these are my expectations in terms of classroom behavior that I have. So I would like students to be thoughtful, hardworking, warm-hearted, and cool-headed. We've talked about these expectations in class. So the general idea is I'd like them to be respectful and considerate, and together I call that thoughtful. I would like them to be responsible and cooperative. When I put those things together, I call that hardworking. I would like them to be kind to themselves and others. I think of that as being warm-hearted. And I would like them to solve problems peacefully, and I call that cool-headed. So as opposed to being hot-headed or getting angry or looking at conflict or creating conflict, I would like students to be peaceful in the way that they try and solve disagreements that they get into. I keep a website, and it's got all sorts of components to it. So there is a bar at the top of the website, and you can go to the assignments page, or you can go to a links page. There's a page that explains the proficiency scale that I talked about earlier, and there are all sorts of components on my website that you can check out. So you go to www.Mr. McLeod, so MISTER .weebly.com, and if you just plug in Mr. McLeod, MISTER MCLEOD.weebly.com, it will take you to my website, and you can use that as a resource. So I invite you to stay in contact. You can email me at my school district email address, which is clay.mcleod@sd23.bc.ca. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Mr. MR Clay McLeod, and I post things like links to videos that we look at in class, and links to other things that are relevant either to learning in general or to the things that we are learning about in class. So this last video that I will share is another video that I'll put the link into the description on YouTube so that you can find this video yourself. It's kind of a funny one if you'd like to watch it, but once again, I'm not going to play the whole video for this presentation.